All the alcohol in the world is not going to get me through this shit. Alright, so, before we get into this video, I just want to say that viewer discretion is advised, and that because I already know that YouTube is going to have a sniper rifle pointed at my head for this video, I've just chosen not to even bother with trying to get this video monetized. I've just disabled it myself. It's not happening. If you want to support this channel and my content, please consider becoming a channel member and joining the ranks of Victor Matusik, Adriana Jones, and Riverjoy. That way I can get paid for making these videos that are so heinous that I myself have to opt out of monetizing them. Without further ado, it's hero time. Time to traumatize myself. Woohoo! I think that within the anime community, the isekai genre is a pretty notorious cesspit of poorly made content. Far and wide, the isekai genre is sparsely different iterations of the same boring, bland, and uninspired tropes, with the occasional gemstone found within the shit pile, such as Overlord, that time ago reincarnated as a slime, and I'm Standing on a Million Lives, which for the record I only like because of the fact that Vor is a genuinely consistent plot element. Aside from that, there's nothing really to write home about. I probably shouldn't admit that on YouTube. This video is so fucking off the rails, alright. Isekai, for the most part, tends to be home to some of the more risque sides of the medium, such as with Rising of the Shield Hero using rape allegations, slavery, and an entire country of lolicons as core elements for its first season. Or with literally anything that has ever come out of Sword Art Online. My god, that franchise is heinous. As far as I can tell, most isekai tend to just be some generic action story made for the sake of cheap fan service excuses. And while I suppose that's harmless for the most part, it does make the water a little murky with infamous anime such as Redo of a Healer, shows that really push the boundaries of what the hell viewers should and shouldn't be seeing broadcast on national television and or streaming platforms. It's a bit strange. As someone who's sat through the likes of such internet classics as Two Girls, One Cup, Eel Soup, Lemon Party, and that one picture of a guy whose hand was blown open by a firework. And yes, I did see all of these things out of my own free will due to morbid curiosity because I'm a psychopath. I feel like I have to clarify that I've seen that shit because I know otherwise someone would go down into the comments of this video and tell me that I'm just a little innocent baby and I'm not accustomed to seeing gross shit like the focus of today's video, Skeleton Knight. Trust me, I've seen some nasty shit on the internet. I have been exposed to stuff like this before. This isn't just a case of me thinking the content of the show is worse than it actually is because it's something new to me. The content of this show is just actually foul. There's no excuse for that. If you want to try and make excuses for the show, fuck off and get out of my comments section. Finally, one last piece of preamble before we spread the butthole of this show and really dive into the meat and potatoes of why it's as atrocious as it is. I just want to say that some of the issues found within this show are not exclusive to the show. I'm not here to say that Skeleton Knight is a show that broke new ground in terms of questionable animated content, because it most certainly isn't, and especially not within the manga/anime industry. There are some very odd things out there. Hell, one of my favorite anime of all time, A Certain Scientific Accelerator, absolutely suffers from some of the same issues as anime like Skeleton Knight and other isekais. However, the key distinction here that separates an anime that handles such topics well from anime that handle it terribly is the fact that with shows like A Certain Scientific Accelerator, you know what? Those weird elements are either so minor that I can ignore them, they're used for the sake of portraying how sick and twisted a villain is, and the villain in question is then punished for doing whatever they did, or it's done in a way where clearly the approach taken was done to try and subvert the typical execution of such a trope. And sure, while it's still not great to see shit like that even when it is handled well in a show, sometimes as a viewer you just have to accept that such topics are sometimes used just for the sake of adding realism or showing how dark and corrupt the story's setting really is. And in those cases, I can at least somewhat understand why it was done. The problem is, Skeleton Knight doesn't do that, does it? For those who aren't aware, Skeleton Knight is a funky little 12-episode anime that I had the misfortune of checking out on Crunchyroll. Not sponsored, by the way, I just happened to watch it on that platform. Honestly, if this was a sponsored video, I don't think they'd want me to talk about the show. While for the most part, the show is just about as mediocre and mind-numbingly average as any other isekai show, I can at least say that some of the action was animated decently alright, and the show had a few funny inside jokes that I was able to appreciate when they were told. However, I dropped the show halfway through episode 10. But I will be completely honest, I don't actually remember why. One of the last things I remember in the show was the female lead trying to force herself onto the male lead while drunk and clearly not in her right mind. But I'll be kind and give the benefit of the doubt that maybe I'm slightly misremembering the context of that scene. But based on some of the other shit this show has to offer, I wouldn't be surprised if my memory was crystal clear. It's just a toss-up. I don't want to have to go back through the whole show and remember. to be completely honest. For this video, we're specifically going to be delving into episode 1 of Skeleton Knight, because I think that the first episode of this anime might just be the worst opening episode of anything that I've ever watched in my entire life. And yes, I watched Boku no Pico. What this show's first episode thinks is acceptable storytelling is so misguided and disgusting that it has earned an entire video's worth of my wrath over it. The rest of the show, I barely even remember. This, oh my fucking god, I will always remember this. To start off, let's dissect how the first episode of Skeleton Knight actually begins. Oh! You know what's so worrying about this screen? Well, aside from the fact that it doesn't even actually tell you what specific triggering topics are included within the episode. This screen lasts for 3 seconds, and then immediately, I shit you not, immediately cuts to a girl getting her dress ripped open, exposing her underwear while she's screaming that she wants the person doing it to stop. You give the viewer 3 seconds to read a vague warning, and then you immediately thrust them right into the triggering content? Like, yeah, sure, you did warn the viewer, but still! You know what this trigger warning didn't do? Prepare me for the fact that I was immediately going to be witnessing triggering content the exact nanosecond that the trigger warning ended. I don't care if you put a warning anymore, because you then just unapologetically went straight into the upsetting content. This would be like if I put a big warning up on screen right now that said, did you know some people have photosensitive epilepsy? And then 2 seconds later, without warning, I played the entirety of Electric Soldier Porygon on 10 times speed. Do you see how it's unfair and just outright fucking stupid to give a warning literally just before you show the thing you were warning them about? And bearing in mind that this show didn't even have the courtesy to tell you what you were about to witness. So you were really fucking thrust into the deep end on this. On top of that, I just want to make it very fucking clear that this is the only anime where I have ever seen a trigger warning pop up at the start. For the record, I have sat through this, and even fucking this, and none of that content had a trigger warning before it. If that doesn't tell you how bad what you're about to see really is, oh my god, you are too young and innocent for this video. Speaking of, seeing as I know YouTube will have me hung, drawn, and quartered for showing you what happens in the scene following this trigger warning, how about I just list it for you in the hopes that that's somehow less damning? Attempted sexual assault. A girl pissing her pants in fear. Sexual assaulters being happy that she pissed herself. Sexual assaulters ripping apart piss-drenched underwear. Unapologetic cleavage shot fan service several times, which, by the way, is not something that you should be highlighting in a scene this fucking dark and disgusting. It's very distracting that there are a big pair of fat titties shaking in my face while a girl is screaming not to be raped. Leg breaking. Threats of further sexual assault. Ignoring literal crying police begging for the situation to stop. And you know what the anime has the fucking nerve to do? After all of that, within the span of about a minute, the main character shows up, casually introduces himself, and then makes a fucking joke. Excuse me? You did not, what? Ow! This is not fucking okay. And worst of all, after all of that, after every triggering thing we just had to sit through, and after the show was tone deaf enough to make a fucking joke out of it, the anime proceeds to cut to a flashback of the main character's backstory, which goes on for the next 12 minutes! During this 12-minute long flashback, our main character commits deforestation, starts a fucking forest fire, objectifies a woman of another species, and then proceeds to try and stalk that woman, and then is disappointed when he loses sight of her, goes along with a false assumption about him being a mercenary who's working to make money for his sick kid because he thinks it sounds like a cool backstory idea. What the fuck is that even about? Gets disappointed that slaughtering random animals isn't as fun or fantastical as he thought it would be, and then, by the time that the episode finally actually gets back to the disgusting shit that it threw us into at the start without warning, well, without good warning rather, once our main character finds out that 2 women are about to be sexually assaulted by a group of bandits, do you know what his first thought is? It's pretty clear whose side I should be on, but, fucking but? What do you fucking mean, but? What? No, you know what? Fuck this. I'm fucking done. Fuck this show. Fuck everything in the show to hell and back 5 times over. Fuck this show, 5 Ways to Friday. Fuck this, I'm fucking done. Fuck off, Skeleton Knight. Fuck you. No.